Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. The cost of living crisis has hit households hard, and now workers are taking the issue up with their employers. New research from global recruitment consultancy Robert Walters shows nearly 4 in 5 workers expect to start looking for a new job in the next year if they don't get a pay rise that beats inflation. It's a challenge for both sides because while workers are dealing with higher interest rates, grocery and power bills, costs for businesses are also spiking. Andrew Hanson is the Managing Director, New South Wales at Robert Walters. Andrew, welcome back to Fear and Greed.
Sean, thanks for having me.
Take me through some of the key stats from your research. Do most workers realistically expect wage increases to be higher than CPI? I mean, that's 7%, 7.5%. That's a big jump.
It is indeed. And I think that, well, you mentioned it there already, that 4 in 5 candidates that we surveyed are saying that they're likely to hunt for a new job if they don't get that pay rise. I'm not sure that everybody believes that realistically they will get that, but I think when you're looking at the at your personal finances and what's going on in the home, I think many people really need that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how things play out.
What about the threat to leave? Do you think it's just the result of a survey? I mean, it's easier in a survey to say, yeah, I'm happy to leave than to actually do it, obviously.
It is indeed. And do I firmly believe that 78% of candidates are going to move? No, I don't. So I think it will be very much individuals looking at their personal circumstances as they work into next year and to look, is it realistic for them to move? Will they be able to find that opportunity that's going to pay them, let's say, 10%, if it's going to beat inflation for them to move? But I really do think this is a real challenge for employers and employees as we face into next year. And I think it's going to be one of the most complex environments that we've had to navigate in many years.
Yeah, but for employers, it must make them rethink how they operate. So its remuneration may get someone across the line, but it probably doesn't keep them there. People want to work in an operation that they want to work in as opposed to just the money. So do you think employers are thinking like that?
I think they are, and I think many employers, many have had to find, real increases for certain skills over the last year or two to be able to retain particular talent in certain areas. So I think the consideration of the value of non-monetary benefits such as additional training, boosted leave entitlements, they have to adapt those priorities in line with the prevailing economic conditions that are going to be crucial in a high inflation, low growth environment.
Okay, you talk about the prevailing economic conditions. This is all fine when unemployment is at 3.5%. In 12 months' time, that could be 4.5%, and 12 months after that, it could well be in the 5s or even 6s. Is it just that people now know they can get another job, so are prepared to threaten to leave, as opposed to normal circumstances, I suppose?
Well, yes, I think it is a good set of circumstances on paper, at least for many employees. There is some confidence. Having said that, I think that people are looking down the track and starting to be, a little more worried about where things might end up. But this starts at the point where people are really considering, where am I going to be off in real labour terms now? And certainly if they look at, say, over a 2-year period, compared with their personal costs to run their lives, their mortgage, look at rent, look at cost of groceries and so on and so forth, and energy, of course, that they have some confidence with the market as it is now, and they have a real need to see an increase in their pay packet.
So it's happening now? Like, I'm wondering when all this comes to a head.
It's happening now, absolutely. So people are at that traditional time where they're coming to the end of a calendar year. We've got differences across different industries that we work in, of course, of pay cycles, whether companies be international firms, some pay on a calendar year, some pay on the Australian tax year. But it is a traditional time for people to give consideration to coming to the end of the year. They've got a break at Christmas, and they're really starting to look into the new year, especially with everything that's in the headlines at the moment, when they're looking at the government talking very clearly about how they see things moving forward and what's being done in the current conversations. It is real, and people are starting to pop their heads up and give consideration to, if I were to move, what is out there for me, and could I see real increase for myself in terms of my salary and benefits?
Is the grass always greener on the other side, Andrew?
I'd have to say no, it's not. So I really do think that we're speaking to both our candidates, of course, and our clients, and encouraging them to have open and honest conversations about what they want and what they can give on both sides. And I think it's only through constructive conversations like this that people can hope to secure the best outcome, whether that be moving or whether it be giving some consideration to the fact they work for a business. The business has costs and it has, medium and long-term goals as well. So I think that sensible people will be engaging and having conversations before they get to the point of pulling the trigger and jumping ship, because it's not always the case that the grass is always greener.
Stay with me, Andrew. We'll be back in a minute. My guest this morning is Andrew Hanson, Managing Director in New South Wales at Robert Walters. Okay, now I worked at Fairfax for a long while, and that was a company whose revenue model had broken because of the internet. And it wasn't really until I got into management, and even kind of relatively senior management, that I fully appreciated the cost pressures of that organisation. From my point of view, I was a journalist. I wanted to get paid as much as I could, and I worked really hard, and I thought I should get paid well. But kind of suddenly it hit me, if everyone gets paid really well, you don't have a business, effectively. How aware do you think are employees of that kind of yin and yang in an organisation?
I think that's a hard question to answer across the board. I think where you look at candidates that work in particular types of roles, say in a financial services company or in a finance function, perhaps they're more attuned to the real costs of the business. But I do think that there are, a large percentage of candidates out there or individuals out there that may not have a total appreciation. But I guess what employers need to understand is they can't expect everybody to have that understanding. And as such, they really need to be thinking very carefully about ensuring that they're consulting appropriately with, in particular, the people that they really can't do business without. So it's a very tricky balance at the moment.
So your research has data on sectors and roles that are seeing strong salary growth and also some that are seeing declines in salaries. Strangely, some sectors seem to be represented on both sides of the equation. So marketing directors have had huge salary growth, whereas digital marketing managers pretty much have had none. How's all that work?
Well, I mean, our survey works across thousands of data points for this. And remember, we're working within our specialist areas. We're a white-collar professional recruiter, so it doesn't cover all areas of the market. But we've seen some areas like, say, technology, where there's been significant pay increase over the last couple of years, and employers are starting to get to the point where they just don't know where they can continue to increase. However, some of these roles are absolutely paramount to their ability to be able to continue to take their business forward. So there's across the board, there's some examples where they're outliers, but broadly across the board, we haven't got one sector that where all salaries are necessarily going up. Some of them are quite specialists, as you'd understand. It could be an investment consultant in an asset management business, for example. There's real appetite for those particular individuals at the moment, but there may be other roles within asset management in a slightly different capacity that maybe in real terms aren't seeing growth. So I mean, I guess that's the value of our business, to be able to consult individually with businesses and individuals on the specific areas. And these things change quite quickly as well. In another 3 months or 6 months, we will see changes start to move through. This is a point in time, but yeah, it's there are definitely differences in different sectors.
Okay, so sitting there as the Managing Director in New South Wales at Robert Walters, what are you telling clients being companies that you are trying to help find people for? How should they approach it? And then the next question I'm going to ask you is, as an employee or a potential candidate, how should I be thinking about it?
So to employers, we are encouraging them to ensure that they have a full talent map on their organisation. They've got to look at the prioritisation of roles. Who can't they afford to lose? Where are they relatively comfortable at the moment? Where are they? And I don't think very many businesses are operating with a lot of fat in them these days. I mean, we've seen that over a long period of time, that's sort of been worked out. But I think that we're working with employers to look at priorities, to look at talent mapping, and to start early and ensure that conversations are being had and they're not being brushed under the carpet, because by looking at these things and engaging their employees, they can start to understand. And I mentioned before, Can they look at those non-monetary benefits? Can they be working with individuals to look at the culture of the organisation? What more can they be doing to make it really hard for people to move? And I'm not suggesting they're doing that by underpaying staff, but they're probably under just as much pressure as they are as their competitor as to whether they can put that salary up for a particular role. And on the candidate side, as I mentioned before, we're urging people to have a proper full view of what's most important to them. And in some cases, they can't survive on the pay that they're on at the moment at one end of the spectrum. And in others, they have real aspiration that they believe they are being underpaid to market based on their skills and capabilities. But we're still looking at it's the full picture. You've got to understand how is your career developing, what learning and development is there. And we encourage people to take an holistic view to their circumstances on both sides.
Listening to you, Andrew, it seems like there's an opportunity on both sides, employers and employees, to kind of rethink how they operate.
I'd agree with that up to a point. I think that there is a real opportunity on both sides to really have more open, honest conversations. Because I think from the candidate experience, we speak to a lot of people that come to us and they're looking for advice. They won't have had that conversation with their boss. They're too scared. They pop their head up. Is it seen to be that they're the next person that perhaps that they might not get that promotion, or may they find themselves out of a job if they're pushing too hard. But if we're speaking to people and they haven't had a conversation in the recent past, we encourage them to have an open conversation, even if it is just to understand or get some visibility on what does next year look like. They might not have been told what pay rises look like, just to get a full appreciation and to do it in a way that's constructive as opposed to being overly demanding, depending on the environment. And the same goes with our clients, I guess, the employers. So I don't think you're not going to change everything overnight, but I do think that there's there is a real opportunity for more open, honest conversations from both sides to look at where are the possibilities, where there is, may as well meet it head on. There's a challenge here. We have costs that have gone up. We are looking to increase salaries as much as we can. However, perhaps it's not going to be, and they're prepared to come out and say they're not going to be across the board at 7.3%, say. So I think those conversations are super important.
Andrew, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thanks for having me.
That was Andrew Hanson, Managing Director in New South Wales at Robert Walters. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.